Hello and welcome back to this next match of the Day 3 of the 11th Alliance Tournament. We have for you here Sicarius Draconis versus Exiled Ones, and that is a flagship that you just saw on your screen. That is a flagship Vindicator being flown by Scrut 5 for Sicarius Draconis. That's going to be a very, very dangerous ship. We have the bands now up on the screen. Sicarius band Griffin Armageddon, and then Exiled band Aneros Dominix. What do you think of these bands compared to what we see abroad?
Well, nobody wants to go up against the Dominix right now. The Griffin ECM is not fun for a Tinker to deal with. I am actually looking at the wrong side for that. The red bands, I guess, since they're bringing their damage is so centered into a few different ships that they don't want that to be able to be jammed out, and they don't want to deal with newts and drones out of the Armageddon either. So it was pretty much running the gamut there of let's get rid of battleship drone setups.
So the whole Sicarius Draconis team is very well, both these are very battleship heavy. It's double Vindicator, Balgorn with a Myrmidon, a Guardian, and then support Friggs, Maulus, and Tristans. Exiled Ones have brought a gigantically strong battleship Tinker team. It's a lot of hit points. It's 3 Navy Scorpions, a Golem, then a Basilisk for reps, and then some very inconsequential, relatively speaking, Friggs that'll be applying some E-War and tackling. This is going to be a tough tank to break for Sicarius Draconis, but they do have DPS, that's for sure.
They've got plenty of DPS. They do have some decent cap pressure. What's something really important that's happened here, though, is that Sicarius Draconis won the Damp War pretty decisively, which means they're not going to. Sicarius isn't going to be taking nearly as much damage on the charge in. It's a free-for-all once they're there, but they shouldn't lose too much when they're trying to cover the 70 kilometers or whatever they had to cover to get on top of these Navy Scorpions and the Golem.
Yeah, so we're seeing right now the charge of these Vindicators in, and they're about to land on top. We'll see if they get any successful bumps, which can be very effective against these no-prop battleships often. The primary for Exiled Ones is the non-flagship Vindy. So the one Vindy you're seeing under fire right now is not the flagship. Julius there is in a normal Vindicator, and Scrut 5 is in the flagship. It's still an expensive ship, but not as expensive as a flagship can be.
So the Balgorn appears to be putting all of his newts onto the Basilisk. They're trying to alpha through. They are getting some armor damage. If he goes down early, it bodes very well. And there he goes. All right, so now they need to get onto these Navy Scorpions, try to drop them as quickly as they can before they start bleeding.
Fast as well. This is going to, like, that initial Basilisk kill extremely, extremely strong for Sicarius, but losing the Vindicator is going to take a lot out of their DPS. They need to get that Golem into as low as possible before the Vindicator drops. And he is going down. It's just not going down really fast enough.
I'm not sure why they're splitting damage here right now. They need to very quickly remove some damage off the field in hopes of keeping Julius up. If they don't do that, which they're not, Vindicator goes down, but at the same time, the Golem is getting extremely low.
Yes.
There's still, if that Vindicator's fit very expensively, he can get upwards of 1,800 DPS for not a huge amount of ISK. But they just have to let these newts go to work. Hopefully this Golem drops.
Yeah, so the Golem is still repping. He is getting a lot of cap transfers. With a Tinker team like this, every ship that gets removed from it makes the cap pressure a lot easier to apply, makes that Balgorn a lot more powerful. Meanwhile, the Vindicator that's being shot, this one is the flagship. So this is a flagship Vindicator that's now in like half armor and dropping very fast.
And the logistics pilot for Sicarius has reps on frigates while they're flagship Vindicator's going down. That's a horrible call.
Really quickly. He's taking a lot of damage from these guys. This is not looking good there for Sicarius. That is a very, very likely, very expensive.
Okay, but it looks like the Golem is capped out. He's not able to run his ASB on his local capacitor. So
I just saw another booster.
Oh god, it's so close. If they can get the Golem down, the Vindicator might be able to tank through it, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen in time. Yeah,
that is going to be another boost. This Golem is still repping, and meanwhile the Vindy is dropping. If this Golem can survive through that Vindy, he might actually be able to just save himself and survive this whole match because, well, we'll see if he's going to structure now. But one way or another, this Vindy is going to die. Even if the Golem goes down, these 2 Navy Scorpions are about to finish off the Vindicator. That is a very, very expensive ship. Flagships, for anyone that's not familiar with them, as we see it go down, that is one of the most expensive explosions you've seen in a while in EVE Online, ladies and gentlemen. And the Golem clawing back in low structure.
I don't think Exiled Ones is going to lose another ship. Not a battleship anyway.
Yeah.
They might lose a Corax. They might lose their secondaries, but they're not going to lose another big ship. This match, I honestly think that the fumble there with the logistics pilot on
the reps fast enough.
Yeah, and he had reps on a Tristan and a Maulus. When the Vindicator went into armor. So I mean, that's a really poorly placed amount of time on those reps, especially when you consider the monetary value of that Vindicator.
Yes. So for anyone that's not familiar with it, a flagship in the tournament is a special ship that is allowed to break basically some of our rules. It's allowed to fit modules that are too valuable and too expensive to normally allow in the tournament. We allow each team to have one flagship. They have to let us know what type of ship they're going to use. It has to be a Tech 1 or faction battleship. And they're not allowed to bring it again after it dies. So once it dies, even if Sicarius could somehow pull this back, they couldn't bring their flagship back again.
Yeah, the flagship is completely gone, and it does bring the value if you have the money that you can tank it better, you can make it do more damage. I don't believe you're able to use faction hardeners, but if you wanted to use faction self reps, I think it's 2 armor reps or 1 shield rep. So you do have some nice options there, and the utility you get out of it is also good, and that's why you see Balgorns being so common, is because you get to put officer newts on, you get to put officer webs on, so it gets you a lot more for the same amount of points.
Yeah, and we've seen Vindicators, we're seeing Balgorns, we're seeing Armageddons be the most popular battleships for this, because the modules that you're allowed to fit, super valuable on these, fit in well with what these ships do.
Absolutely.
You're allowed to fit special high-end versions of stasis webifiers, which you get big bonuses to the Vindicator on.
Yep.
Long-range ones, and then the Vindicator slows you down a lot more than most ships.
Before I saw the light last year, my team, we ran a Vindicator. Now I know the Dominix is the way to go, and Hydra Reloaded is the only one to do it. Hopefully they don't prove me wrong.
Yeah, Dominix is an interesting choice. They're the only ones that created a flagship Dominix, so it'll be really cool to see when that actually comes out at some point. I think it's pretty safe to say that Hydra will stay in the tournament long enough to use that flagship. So
I would imagine so as well. We'll see how they implement it, because you're not going to be able to do it in a complete Dominix setup if the Dominix gets
what I
banned
really
out.
want to see is that ship die so I can see what the fit is. We'll see, though. We're going to be seeing them a little bit later today. They're going to be right towards the end of the day. Maybe they'll bring it out in that match.
Maybe?
Probably not, but maybe. But one way or another, this one is just a matter of time. That Balgorn, they're tanking quite well. The problem is they can't break anything.
I think they switched over to the Guardian.
Yeah, there we go.
The Balgorn's, its primary role in a setup like this is not to do DPS, it's to prevent DPS and increase the DPS output that you have. And it does that by neuting off guns from the enemies, neuting off hardeners, things like that. And so you don't usually use your mid slots for a lot of damage mods, so they get to be pretty heavily tanked. So taking out the Guardian here is a pretty good choice. Once they're done with that, I would take out the Myrmidon, get the links off, depending on the positioning of the frigates, but they're going to just systematically pick this apart until they run out of time. Tinker setups like this aren't always known for having the highest DPS output, but they tank so well that it makes up for it. It's kind of a snowball for the end game.
Yep, and since the cruise changes, this kind of Tinker setup, the cruise missile battleship one, is a lot more damage than it used to be. This is very similar to what we saw a lot in the New Eden Open.
Yeah, in AT10, before cruise missiles were strong, you would see the triple golem setups. You'd see Navy Ravens on occasion, though not nearly as commonly, but they didn't do, I mean, I think we were only looking at 600 or 700 DPS out of them, and I think that the applied DPS now is a lot higher than that.
Yes, actually, the theoretical DPS is way higher. The percentage of that gets applied is actually a bit lower than it used to be, but the end result is that they apply a lot better damage because there's just so much more raw damage. And that Guardian is doing the smart thing of keeping himself moving to reduce the damage from missiles. He is very small signature radius, so the missiles are not going to be doing anywhere near their full damage to him.
Yep, and predictably the Myrmidon's running around with links on. I mean, that's pretty much its job. Bring a couple sentry drones. I believe it's 4 on the new Myrmidons, and that's not at all insignificant when you're considering the fact that its primary purpose in this comp is utility mid slots and a link or two in the highs.
We just saw a hilarious scramble attempt from one of the Tristans onto a drone. He's warp scrambled a drone, and I guess trying to make sure it doesn't escape. But the Tristans are getting killed off by Exiled ones now, and there goes the Guardian. So that is going to mean that Exiled ones will now be able to take down these remaining ships fairly casually. And you saw, like, on all this time we've been talking, since the Vindicators died, there just hasn't been enough damage to even phase the Exiled ones.
Yeah, the Golem has enough just raw shield HP with the amount of DPS that they have on the field that even if he's on a reload cycle, his shields will get low, but he's not gonna die.
Well, I doubt he's gonna actually let himself go into reload because he does still have 3 cap transfers, heavy cap transfers.
Yes, correct. And I believe you need 4 to perma run an XL ASB. I'm not 100% on that, but I think it's 4.
But against this damage with the resist that a Golem has, you don't really need to perma run it.
No.
Pulse in it's going to be fine. He's keeping himself pretty easily up. And we're seeing now the Frigate's getting taken down. And then, like you said, the Myrmidon, the next target here for Exiled ones. It's smart move. Clear that guy off. He's going to go down a lot faster than the Balgorn. The Balgorn actually has a very decent chance of surviving the 45 seconds left, which is nice.
But yeah, it's nice because they, it's a little over a billion ISK that they don't have to replace.
For anyone that's not familiar with it, all of the ships that we have in this does take place on our Tranquility server, on our official live server that has 60,000+ people on it some days, all in the same server together. And all of these ships are real ships that they had to pay for or mine or do all the kinds of things they do to make money to get a hold of these. And so losing them is a financial hardship, especially that flagship, I'm sure, was quite expensively fit.
Yeah, I mean, it would be in a traditional sense of how much work it takes. You would be looking at a minimum of about 8 hours to farm up enough to get this hull. So it's not at all insignificant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and if you don't make money quite as quickly, then it can be even worse. As we see, 2 seconds left here. The remaining 3 ships there for Sicarius are going to survive. That Golem actually at the very end starting to look sketchy, but now he's fine because time is up. And if he does die, we'll give him the ship back. So that is Sicarius Draconis out of the tournament. Exiled ones with a really, really strong tanking battleship setup.
Another Razor's Edge match there. Could have gone either way.
So we're going to be back in just a moment with Surely You're Joking versus Clockwork Pineapple. In the meantime, we'll send you back to Soundwave in the studio.